5 minutes for your questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks to all of our witnesses for joining us today to discuss these very important issues. First, I want to acknowledge that there's been a lot of jargon, legal jargon, and acronyms thrown around today, but to be frank, quite honestly, we're speaking about one plain and simple principle, and that's equality. We've heard today about many ways in which Secretary DeVos and this administration have worked to weaken, roll back, remove any key civil rights protections, particularly for LGBTQ individuals and women. And as someone who has spent my career working among our most vulnerable populations in Nevada's public schools, I'd like to first focus on how these actions are hurting students, particularly students that are at high risk of falling behind or dropping out or even worse. To Ms. Goss-Graves, as we discussed today, in 2017, Betsy DeVos rescinded key guidance that secured the rights of transgender students, leaving transgender students now more vulnerable to ongoing discrimination at school. Can you speak to how this rescission of the guidance does just that?
Well, the first thing to know is that transgender students are more likely to experience discrimination and harassment in school, and study after study has shown that. And that the harassment that they experience, that when they do go forward, they are less likely to be believed or told to change who they are rather than having the schools enforce their rules. So we are already starting out at a place that's worrisome. But the combination of the message that the Department of Education is sending, that they don't really have to do what they need to do with the Bostock decision, plus the change in the Title IX sexual harassment and violence rules could have devastating effects, especially for all LGBTQ students, but transgender students in particular.
Thank you. I'd also like to break down the Bostock Supreme Court decision that we've heard a lot about today, and how that decision contrasts with this administration's policies regarding gender discrimination. As you all know, this past June, the Supreme Court confirmed that the Civil Rights Act protects transgender workers from discrimination because of sex, much in the same way that Title IX has been interpreted to protect transgender students. One would logically conclude that this decision settles the matter regarding the inclusion of gay and transgender individuals protected under anti-discrimination laws that afford protections based upon sex. And this decision is in a stark contrast to the administration's position that Title VII of the Civil Rights Act does not protect discrimination based on against sexual preference and gender identity. Ms. Fry, in response to the Bostock decision, you've urged this administration to, quote, take immediate steps to ensure that its policy positions are aligned with the court's ruling, including reversing course on its ongoing efforts to deny protections to LGBTQI plus individuals. What are some of the policy areas that need to be modified in light of the court's rulings?
Well, I think, where we start is making sure that the administration is clear across all the agencies that the Bostock decision does indeed say that sex discrimination should be read broadly to encompass the rights of LGBTQI workers. And really that then sends the message that from education to housing to employment, all of these areas that they continue to push these types of rules, they need to fundamentally reverse course. It also means litigation. We didn't mention that they continue to intervene in cases where they have advanced arguments that now the court has said are not valid. So I think it is really a full stop on all of these efforts, and to make clear that across the board, they need to rethink how they are interpreting sex discrimination.
Thank you so much. And again, I just want to make sure that we continue to focus that the key issue here is not lost in the legal jargon. Simply put, this is about equality for every student, worker, parent, and child. And so thank you, Chairwoman, for having this important conversation and all the witnesses, and I yield.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. And I believe we are, is there any other member present?